I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of Old's Oscar Countdown. And this is the first week we are going to be talking about the Oscar winners. We've been covering what I think is going to get nominated, have my final predictions, gave my live reactions, and now from here on out, we're still going to be doing videos. They're going to be less structured, they're going to be a little bit different each and every week, but essentially doing the same thing, just now trying to predict who's going to win for the Oscars. You guys have been showing a lot of support for this channel this season. This has been one of our most successful years, both in terms of predictions, but also in terms of comments and views and all that great stuff. So I really do appreciate you guys coming along the journey, and I hope you kind of continue to stay along with to trying to predict now what's going to win Best Picture. But if you're new to the channel, that's what I've been doing, predicting the nominations in various different forms. Now we're going to predict the winners, and we've been doing this now for over 8.5 years. This is my 9th season predicting the Oscars. Just ended up getting in the top 10% on Gold Derby in terms of nominations, with really within the top 7%, including the shorts. So really have a basis of accurate predictions, and even in terms of the Oscar winners, we often do pretty well, and that's because we do the deep dives, we do the research, and we do certain videos like this, ultimately though to help you with your own predictions. And in this video, it's kind of a sister video to next week's episode. Essentially what I'm going to be doing is talk about the 5 Oscar categories that I think are guaranteed locks to win, and then 5 categories next week that, or maybe even more, we'll see, that I'm kind of unsure about. I'm not sure exactly if there's a winner or not. And some may say, well, Connor, why are you going to do the obvious video, the movie that you think that have the most obvious locks to win? And I think it's actually super important to know which categories you should be debating, which categories you should not be. Because sometimes, you know, if you're watching this video, you're a hardcore Oscar fan, you may be doing a lot of research on all the different categories, and sometimes you may do too much research, you may do too much overthinking, and then not kind of see the obvious pick right in front of you. So sometimes it's helpful just to look at the categories and go, okay, I know this is going to happen, so I'm not going to overthink it. I'm not going to predict another movie. So that's kind of the point of this video, to understand what are the movies that you don't have to overthink, that we are pretty sure are kind of locks. I wanted to include some above the line categories, not just technical stuff, even if I don't feel as confident in those, just to give us an understanding at the very least as to what categories are kind of up for grabs and what categories are not. And as always, if you want to hear my thoughts on one category or another, use the timestamps in the description down below. But starting off with the first category, I believe that Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain will win Best Supporting Actor at the Oscars. I think it's a very high likelihood at this point. Sure, I may not be as confident with this category that I am, let's say, with some of the other kind of below the line categories, but I still do think that it's going to be Kieran Culkin at the end of the day, and there's lots of reasons why. First off, and I'm going to be saying this for a lot of the different categories, is that there really is no number 2. There really is no clear person that will compete against him. I think for a long time it was kind of Guy Pearce, but Guy Pearce missed out at SAG. So even in the scenario where Guy Pearce wins at BAFTA, he's not going to win at SAG. It's probably going to be Kieran there, and then it'll be up for grabs in terms of the Oscars. But really, I don't see that happening because I don't see a lot of acting support. It would be weird for him to miss out on SAG and then, let's say, win at BAFTA, particularly now that the BAFTAs didn't have a jury system this year. So it should be kind of makes it replicable of what the actors actually think. So then the number 2 may be Edward Norton, just because he's gone in everywhere. But when you hear him speak about the movie, he's always speaking about Timothy and how great Chalamet has done as Bob Dylan, and is receded kind of more into the back. So I'd be surprised if he won, although there could be a narrative, a late-breaking narrative of he's never won before and let's give him an Oscar. So there's no kind of clear number 2, which I think really helps Culkin, who's already won, who's already cemented himself as the frontrunner. And I also think it's worth noting that most years, the 4 acting winners don't go to actors in Best Picture movies. That is to say, we already have the Best Actress kind of front runners, which are Mikey Madison or Demi Moore. Their movies are nominated for Best Picture. Same thing with Supporting Actress. It's probably Zoe Saldana or Ariana Grande. Both their movies are nominated for Best Picture. And then Actor, Chalamet, Brody Fines, their movies are nominated for Best Picture. But when you look at the past 10 years, I went through over the past 10 years, there have only been 3 years in which all 4 of the acting winners in the acting categories had their movie nominated for Best Picture. Many years, there's Alicia Vikander for The Danish Girl, or Brendan Fraser for The Whale, or Julianne Moore for Still Alice. And one of the acting categories, 7 out of the last 10 years, goes to a performance whose movie is not nominated for Best Picture. So even though A Real Pain underperformed and kind of missed out on that category, we still know it's a well-liked movie. It did get in at PGA, got in at Screenplay. And if anything, it gives more credence to someone like Kieran Culkin because this is their kind of one opportunity to reward the movie where they may have other opportunities to reward the brutalist in the case of Guy Pearce, or a complete unknown for the case of, let's say, Edward Norton or Mira Borisov for Nora. There are kind of more obvious places to reward those types of movies, whereas with A Real Pain, this is kind of the one shot. So still feel like he's the clear, in a way, kind of front runner. Then my second category that I think is an absolute lock is that I think Brady Corbet is going to win Best Director for The Brutalist. The more I looked into this category, the more I became more confident that he is the frontrunner. Even though we don't know who the Best Picture winner is, most of the time the kind of obvious Best Director winner that wins at the Golden Globes, the kind of favorite to win at Gold Derby earlier on in the season, usually whatever that movie is, ultimately wins Best Director. Even in the case of like Coda surprises and has a late minute surge, but Jane Campion still won for Director. Or Damien Chazelle still wins for La La Land, even though, the late-breaking Search for Moonlight wins there. There is kind of at least an element of the director frontrunner at the beginning of the season usually wins. So I'm going to bet on Brady Corbet because he is the frontrunner at this moment, already won the Golden Globes. Brutalist overperformed in my mind in terms of nominations, getting in for editing, getting those couple of acting nominations that it didn't get at SAG. And another interesting point is that his competitor, I guess, would be maybe something like a Jacques Audiard, but I have concerns that Emilia Pérez will be a little bit more divisive. I always thought of it as a movie to get a lot of nominations, but when you're talking about wins, now you're talking about the entire Academy, they may not all love it in that same way, so there may be some concerns in terms of wins, and Jacques Audiard hasn't won anything yet. And then you could say maybe the number 2 would be Sean Baker for Nora, but if you look at the past 3 winners, in Jane Campion, Christopher Nolan, and the Daniels, all 3 of those directors had widespread support. As a matter of fact, if you go back through all the past directing winners, I think you have to go back to Martin Scorsese with The Departed to find a director whose movie didn't have acting nominations, yes, but then also below-the-line stuff. Even something like a Bong Joon-ho. Parasite got in a below-the-line category like production design. Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Power of the Dog, they'll get in for sound or score. They'll get in some of the more of the below-the-line categories. So if you look at a movie like Sean Baker and Nora, they don't really have any below-the-line categories. And then you look at someone like a Brady Corbet in The Brutalist. He has 3 acting categories, so actors really like the movie. Oh, and then also he has a bunch of technical nominations as well, so it makes it seem like the most kind of directed movie. And then, of course, all the kind of narratives and parallels between Brady Corbet kind of being the Laszlo Toth of trying to make this movie, and the kind of artist, the way he's positioned himself as making this movie for such a small amount of money and really sacrificing everything to make this happen. I think it's a good narrative for the Academy to want to reward this kind of singular visionary artist who's gotten a bunch of nominations, has support from a bunch of different branches. And that's a kind of a consistent trend from just the past 3 winners of the 3 acting nominations and then technical stuff. But even back to 2006, we haven't had a movie winner, which would be the case in the case of someone like a Sean Baker, that had only above the line kind of a nominations. Usually you have to have kind of that widespread support, which Brady Corbet has. Then the third category that is a guaranteed lock to win, it is Emilia Pérez for Best International Film. And I know we're just a few days away from the Oscar nominations, and a lot of people are happy that I'm Still Here got nominated for Best Picture. And they should be. That was a huge win for the movie, and even Fernando Torres getting in. But I see it every year. People always overthink this category. Even in years when Roma wins or Parasite or All Quiet on the Western Front, sometimes some people pick for an upset. They'll pick the alternative option. And they always make that mistake. And that's why, because I'm Still Here kind of has this boost and did get in for Best Picture, you could say, oh, wait, maybe he's going to win for Best International Feature. Is that on the table now? And I'm here to say that I think it's very unlikely. Because when we look at the past winners of this category, every single time, a movie got nominated for Best Picture and also nominated for Best International Feature, they've won. That's kind of just the consistency. You could have to go back to something like Pan's Labyrinth, which didn't get in for Best Picture, but got a couple other nominations to lose out in International Feature. But All Quiet on the Western Front and The Zone of Interest and Roma and Parasite, just go back year over year, drive my car. You get nominated for Best Picture, you get nominated for Best International Feature, there's the overlap. The difference this year, of course, being we have 2 movies nominated for Best Picture in this category. So what's the obvious choice? Emilia Pérez. Emilia Pérez had 13 nominations, one away from tying the record of most nominations. That is to say, even though it's a divisive movie to some, it still is well liked with the Academy. It has broad support from all different branches. And ultimately, the entire Academy, not just the International Feature branch, the entire Academy votes on this category. So we know I'm Still Here is well liked, definitely. It got in for Best Picture. But Emilia Pérez got in for the same categories that I'm Still Here did, International Film, Picture, and Actress. Oh, and then 10 more nominations on top of that, including Director, including Screenplay. Don't overthink this one. Emilia Pérez is the most well-liked movie of this bunch, the most well-liked movie of the bunch. Oftentimes is the only one that has the Best Picture nomination, but almost always does well and wins in this category. I would be very surprised if Emilia Pérez loses this category. Then the 4th category that I think is locked up is costume design, going to Wicked. Wicked is a tough movie to actually predict the winners because I don't see it like a Mad Max Fury Road or a Dune where it's going to get all the technical award wins, because I don't think it's really going to compete in like visual effects really, or maybe sound. It didn't even get in for something like cinematography. But what I am confident in is kind of costume design and probably production design. Definitely costume design, though. Why? Well, a bunch of reasons. First of all, it had 10 nominations. You expect it to get a win somewhere. The costumes make the most sense. You have these elaborate dresses in this fantasy world. You have the clear, distinct kind of pink costumes of Glinda versus the black and green of Elphaba. There are kind of clear, distinct color palettes to the characters, and I think there will be appreciation there. It's been nominated everywhere, so you expect it to pick up a few more wins at Critics' Choice or BAFTA or what have you. It's definitely going to win at the Costume Designers Guild because it's in the fantasy category, and none of its kind of competitors got nominated at the Oscars, so it should easily win there. And then you think of past winners in this category, and the Academy is totally okay to reward sci-fi fantasy movies. Both Black Panthers, you could even kind of say Cruella, or Poor Things I'd say is a bit of a fantasy movie. Even going back to 2016, Fantastic Beasts. They are okay with kind of rewarding fantasy-type movies. This is the only fantasy-type movie of the bunch. Also nominated for Best Picture, so you know it's well-liked. The only competitor I could see would be something like Nosferatu, because that's a little bit more in the dresses, period accurate, in the sense of like Little Women or Phantom Thread, more of that kind of a winner. But Little Women and Phantom Thread were Best Picture nominees, and Nosferatu is not. And Wicked is, and has distinct costumes, and was nominated in a bunch of tech categories. So I'd be very surprised if costumes didn't go to something other than Wicked. I wouldn't overthink this category. And then the final category that I think is an absolute lock is The Substance winning for Best Makeup. The Substance, even though it didn't overperform in terms of Oscar nominations morning, I wouldn't necessarily say it underperformed. You could say Margaret Qualley, but that was kind of an outside chance. Editing, you could say that was an outside chance. It got in where it kind of needed to. And those are major categories: picture, director, screenplay, actress. Oh, and then the 5th one, makeup. And there's a lot of kind of stats going towards this win, particularly with makeup. The first being that just look at the past 3 winners. Poor Things, The Whale, and The Eyes of Tammy Faye. The last 3 makeup and hairstyling winners also had their lead actor of that movie also win an Oscar for acting. There's a direct correlation between acting and winning the best makeup and hairstyling. Who's the frontrunner right now to win for Best Lead Actress? Is probably Demi Moore for The Substance. So, if Demi Moore builds more steam and wins at SAG and wins at BAFTA, and she's the clear frontrunner going into Oscars night, it should also make sense that makeup will go along with it. Now, I also want to keep in mind that most years, if you're nominated for Best Picture, you end up picking up at least 1 Oscar win. There are only a couple of movies a year that get no Oscar wins. So The Substance, it's being in 4 major competitive categories and then makeup. Even if Demi Moore doesn't win, I think The Substance has a really great shot here. So ultimately, we try to look at this category between the acting categories and then this category. So what are the other potential spoilers that could upset? Well, it's Wicked or it's Emilia Pérez, both who have their lead actresses also nominated for the Oscars. But who do you think has a better chance of winning that category? Demi Moore, Cynthia Erivo, or Carlos Sofia Gascon? In my mind, I think it makes the most sense that Demi Moore has the highest likelihood to win there. Even amongst those three, Demi Moore is the strongest candidate to win in that category. So you would think that would sort of translate and correlate here to best makeup. And then if you've seen the movie, which we know the Academy has, and we know they like it, it's got incredible makeup. It's got obvious makeup. There are these kind of body horror transformations, these prosthetics that the branch really appreciates. But then also I think general public also will appreciate because it's noticeable. So it's a noticeable makeup in a Best Picture nominee. There are a couple other Best Picture nominees here, but they're not as noticeable with their makeup. But the real key thing here is that Demi Moore is a stronger contender than Cynthia Erivo and Carlos Sofia Gascon in the Best Actress category. And because we know there's a strong correlation between not only acting nominations, but also acting wins in the past 3 years, makeup oftentimes is an indicator towards that. And the substance, I think, will kind of benefit on both sides there, kind of respecting the balance of best makeup and then best lead actress. But that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Next week, I'm going to be giving 5, maybe 7 categories that I'm unsure about, that I think can go either way, and do a little bit of analysis as to maybe where I lean. And then we're going to get into maybe SAG predictions or SAG reactions, BAFTA reactions, stuff like that along the way before finally giving my Oscar nominations predictions at the end of the day. That should be a lot of fun. It's going to come quicker than you think. But that's about it. Until next time, stay tuned.